areas within the Metro Manila are valuable assets. And I think it's a good revenue generating for the country. And we do hope that PAGCOR do decide to privatize those areas, especially they do privatize in the areas in the Visayas region. It will really help the industry.
Chris, I've been saying that if the opportunity does arise, they want to buy up the little properties. But I can see an alternative scenario. The other tycoons who have missed out on the gravy boat so far, San Miguel, Ayala, just to name a few, they decide, well, this is a much lower point of entry into the market, right? We don't have to spend $1 billion or $2 billion. We can just buy these little PAGCOR casinos. What do you think is going to happen to the market?
It's very difficult to speculate. That's
that's all I'm asking you to speculate. You're a very creative guy. I like you for it, and I would love for you to portray, to project in the future.
I have a better answer for that. When you have investors that are investing $1 billion US, and we talk about PAGCOR being a government agency, there are a lot of stakeholders. Whenever you're a government agency, you're really in the political field. So you have stakeholders, everything from your senators, your congressmen, the office of the president. The church is a major stakeholder. The media is a stakeholder. And I believe one very neglected major stakeholder for PAGCOR is really our own employees, or I used to be part of that. And one of the things is when your foot is in the door, like the IRs, they're already in direct talks with PAGCOR. They're already aware of all these scenarios. They're able to influence indirectly the discussions, right? So I think since I'm not part of the IR network, all I can tell Arvin is basically the ball is really in their hands in the sense that they're in discussions, they're current license holders, and they have the ability to influence these different stakeholders, and it's upon them not to drop the ball.
Well, you and I are both aware that there are a lot of the tycoons who are extremely interested. We've seen movements by Ramon Ang in San Miguel to already acquire a couple of small properties, and some of the other families similarly as well. But I press you enough on that. So you talked earlier. I'm sure the media out there will ask you all those questions later. So I'll let you roast there. No, you also talk about you portrayed the change in the gaming revenue tax regime as a good thing, but essentially, isn't that a reversion to status quo? In that previously, the arrangement between PAGCOR and the IRs is that I will charge you 15% tax on the VIP, forgetting the cultural tax, 25% on mass, and you don't get any corporate tax. So this decision by PAGCOR to discount by 10 basis points is because the BIR all of a sudden came along and said, I'm sorry, you guys, you have to pay corporate tax of 30%. So it's really just to neutralize the effect.
Well, that is one perspective, but the better perspective I have to offer is you have now a case where PAGCOR honored its international agreement. When these license agreements were signed, it called for a final tax of 5%. And when our local tax bureau said, no, these companies are still subject to corporate tax, PAGCOR decided basically, quote unquote, to eat the tax. So we've lowered our license fees by almost 40% to compensate for the net 30% corporate tax. So I think the better perspective is the market or the credibility of the Philippine government and PAGCOR has really increased because we have, not we, sorry, I'm not no longer part of that. But the regulator has basically gone out of its way to honor the international agreement.
Absolutely, that is an extremely positive move. And I'll throw that back at you, Armin, because, sorry, go on.
Well, I'd like to add from what Chris said earlier, this is the beauty of being a publicly listed company. We are answerable to our shareholders, both domestic and international. So any, being also a former government official, any change in the regulatory framework really rocks the boat of any publicly listed company. And I think PAGCOR responded promptly, or the Philippine government, to settle the internal issues amongst themselves and settle first and foremost the investors, which is the IRs.
Absolutely.
And basically did some adjustments in order to compensate to what we have lost
Okay.
in the first place.
Now, as far as I know, the terms of your agreement with MPEL is pretty public, and that is you share 50% of the gross gaming revenue or net gaming revenue?
We share 15% of net win or a higher of 50% for EBITDA. So basically,
Correct, of EBITDA.
yeah.
And then on top of that, I believe MPEL gets all of the non-gaming outcomes?
Yes, that is correct. They get all the non-gaming.
Correct. Now, the fact that the conditions have changed, the parameters governing that initial arrangement you had, whereby they get 100% of non-gaming, they share 50% of gaming EBITDA, but remembering that the PACCOR tax was such that there were supposed to be zero tax on non-gaming. Now, non-gaming is subject to a 30% corporate tax. So the 100% that they would have of the non-gaming is now subject to a 30% tax. The 50% of the gaming EBITDA that they have is now discounted. Doesn't that change the basket as far as they're concerned? They are now getting less.
Are you now a consultant for our partners?
I wish I was. Akiko, please. Can I sign up? I'm arguing a case for you. Is there any dialogue or any talks about that?
So far, none. But of course, we're open. You know, things change. In fact, we have a harmonious relationship from the time we became partners,
Right.
and it's really exchanges of things because you know the regulatory framework in the Philippines is also fluid as we speak. In fact, there were some changes, as I said earlier, on the tax issues. We responded. Initially, there was some uneven balance on the level of playing field in terms of number of rooms. In fact, City of Dreams will be the first property that will open adhering to all the regulations